I wish you were here. This would be so much more fun in person.
It's like that. The Jim Jeffries show used to have like this weird little weatherman segment where he would be
Yeah.
like, "Let's check in with the weather," and the guest star who did the weather was always Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt would be like, "It is getting hot, and we're all gonna die," and there will be no one to remember our stories.
Would you like to feel better? Would you like to feel better today?
Is this one of your TikTok motivation things?
It's a setup. Would you like to feel better today?
Yes, please.
Go troll Twitter for a little bit. Woo! People have lost their shit. Oh my God, that was the best 5 minutes I've spent in a couple of days while I was waiting to go on. How you doing, man? I'm sorry you don't feel good.
Oh, I think it's weather change and me trying to eat regular spicy food.
Ooh, and hold on, let me ask you one more question as your physician. How old are you now?
37.
Ooh, it all goes south at 40, and then further south at 45, and then further south at
Thanks for the encouragement, Sean. I look forward to this.
You are welcome. You look like one of the PBS ladies when you leaned over to say that. Thank you very much for the encouragement, Sean. Gonna have those delightful boiled eggs this morning. What's going on, my friend? We have a lot happening over in America in the last 2.5 weeks.
I know. It's been like a non-stop news cycle that's hard to keep a track of.
Man. So in all honesty, I really think this had to be planned out. It just went too well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, you drag it along until the other people have their convention. You're stuck with this weird dude talking about sex on couches and stuff. And then Joe just magically decides to drop out. And when have Democrats ever gotten in line?
I know.
Ever.
This has been like super well planned and orchestrated, in my opinion.
Whoever organized this thing needs to keep that job. Mm-hmm. Let's not fire them. Is that possible? So what do you think of the VP choice, aside from looking like every white person's dad?
I know. That was my first thing. I was talking to Alex yesterday, and I was like, dude, I know at least 5 of my friends' fathers that look like this.
Well, I've started to look like an ugly version of Alan Alda. So, it used to be they compared me to good-looking people. Now it's like, yeah, you look like James Taylor, with the hat on. I'm like, that is not a compliment. Stop it.
He kept reminding me of Cunningham.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's fair. So I watched the speech last night. The guy's name is Walz, W-A-L-Z. And he National Guard guy for like 20 years. And he did armaments. So like he was in the middle of the stuff. Mm-hmm. And then J.D. Vance was a National Guard guy for 4 years, but he was a photographer.
Oh.
So their military records show each other really well. But, I got to be honest, it's nice to see somebody from the military that has gone through that and somebody that's been a teacher, because that's where the attack is right now, running for office and it doesn't matter whether you're first or second in charge, it becomes a priority. The teachers in Oklahoma are the single biggest voting bloc here. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the country I always reference, which is Ireland, is pretty close to Oklahoma. It has 2 major cities. And then everything else is conservative rural. And Ireland, to get gay marriage passed in a Catholic country and to get abortion passed in a Catholic country, what they did is they ran these campaigns called Take One, Bring One. So like if you would take your sister and then bring your mother. And in the car, you talk to them about the issues before you get there. And they find out that these are the issues important to your specific family. Because most people we may talk about who's in charge and stuff, which we can't do anything about, but rarely do we ever talk policy with family members.
Yeah. See, that campaign was run by an old classmate of mine. The Island one. Seriously? Yeah. This was back in, it was her agency who got the initial brief for it.
Right.
And they came up with that idea of doing that. And they had to get in touch with I remember it for the sole reason that she was like, how do I get rights to the music that I want for this ad? And I was like, just call the manager of the band. That's it.
Right. Especially if it's something like that. Because if I remember, some band members from U2 were in there. Because, if you call on something like that and they go, hey, can we borrow the music? And you go, you want me to be in the video? I'll just be in the video. And so they would have, I don't know if you ever saw the actual ads. It's worth a revisit, because I always tell everybody, if you don't think you can change stuff, the Catholic Church controlled this country for 2,000 years. That's not true. Let's say 1,000 years. Getting anything through is impossible. When I was a kid, birth control was still illegal there. Illegal.
Yep.
And so, now they've got a gay married prime minister.
The only weird part about the entire advertising campaign that I used to make fun of was it was always like a young person with like two older people in a car driving them to the polls. And it just looked like the young people had conspired to just go drop off all the old people at some point and be like,
like they were all taking them to an old folks home. Oh my God, that's good. That is quality. But I like the way they did one of them specifically where the kid came into the kitchen, was like, Mom, let's go vote. And, she kind of gave him a bit of a wave off. And he goes, no, really, let's go vote. And then took her with him, because whether we like it or not, that is where we are here. And we have to see how this turnout goes. I mean, undoubtedly, the energy shift in our country here in 3 weeks is shocking. And he's not. And look, Kamala Harris isn't going to win in Oklahoma. It's just not going to happen. Right, it's a Black Asian female, and then with Uncle Fred, rolling along on the campaign trail. But that guy could come talk here and raise a ton of money. They're not going to win. I mean, it's not the way this place is built. And I'm fascinated to see where this goes. But as a person that's done politics my whole life, I look at this and go, dude, this was a rollout. This was not an accidental
something that fell out of the sky.
Right. And magically, ex-presidents came out the next day and endorsed her and all this other stuff. Is she the natural candidate? As we've talked before, of course she was. She was next in line. And at this point in America, you do not get to pass over a Black female. They are the biggest voting bloc, most dependable voting bloc in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure, like, just the way Black parents are is similar to how, like, Indian parents are, where if they believe in something, they'll drag their kid along to the polls and be like, vote.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I would just like to see a seismic shift. I don't like where we've been going for about 12 or 14 years now. And I do realize it started further back, but we would have these ebbs and flows, and it's just gotten ugly lately where hey, man, I tell you what, a month ago, I was just sitting there going, so if Trump gets back in, somebody's going to try to kill me down here, like legitimately, because they would feel free reign. We cannot get a corrupt politician charged with anything down here. I mean, they won't do it. Nobody will go against their own party. And it is troublesome because there is some, as you and I talk all the time, there is some weird stuff down here. So the latest thing here, Deepak, is a guy named Todd Hyatt. Did you ever have any dealings with him?
No.
Okay, so he's Speaker of the House at one point. And so he's at a deal up in Minnesota, and he is the head of the Corporation Commission. So they get to deal with a lot of companies and decide whether those companies get to operate, whether they get raises, whether, the Corporation
tax credits.
Commission decides. Yeah, so you are aware of him. See, there you go.
I'm aware of that job and what it does, because I've had to deal with them in different states.
I am not claiming to know that guy right now. I don't know him. So he's in Minnesota, and he goes out in front of two other people that work for the Corporation Commission in Kansas and starts grabbing this guy's arms and feeling his muscles. And, oh, God, that's really nice. Reaches down and grabs his junk. And not just grabs it and lets it go like a former rugby player with another former rugby player. Hold on. And so the guy has business in front of the Corporation Commission, so he doesn't file a complaint. The other two guys from Kansas file a complaint in Kansas about this. We can't get this asshole out of office.
Oh, wow.
Literally, they've had meetings asking him to resign. The news covered it pretty hard for about 2 days, no pun intended. And I know that was an accident. That really was. And he's
Way
like,
to go
no,
for the cheap laugh, Sean.
Right. Well, it is what I'm known for. It is what I'm known. So he goes, no, I have too much work to do. And he's married, has kids, you know, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
No, wow.
Nobody will do anything. And so they're like, well, we'll see if we can get the Republicans to agree. And you can go, on what? What do you guys want to agree on? That you're not going to do anything? Because that's where we're at. It is nuts. And so I don't want to see what's happening here go national. That is my biggest fear. Okay, one more for you. So I have 2 notes yesterday. So for people who don't know, and you're just on here to learn better English from a British speaker and an American speaker, God bless you. I wish you the best of luck. But for those of you who are really on here for content, the Catholic Church, or the bishop here in Oklahoma City, sent out letters telling all of the teachers and people that work at the schools, et cetera, for the Catholic Church, no political bumper stickers, no signs of any specific candidates or anything else. And they gave the excuse that they're a nonprofit or some, whatever the explanation was. But they have been involved in dirty politics for, I'd say, what, about 2 years now, or 2,000 years, depending on how you look at it. But here locally, 2 years have been really, really, really questionable. And they're not, and look, they got some stuff through, and they're getting funding for people who could already afford to go to private school to come out of the pocket from people that were trying to get free lunch to in public school. But that's a conversation for another day. But they are so involved that they don't want any other people talking smack about them. And I guess I'm the token Catholic to bring these things up.
Sean, they must really hate you out there, huh?
Here's the thing: when you're claiming to be pious, and somebody that has a non-pious job, like a pub owner or a bar owner, or, you know, just somebody that says shit like I say, a profane yeller and riot starter, you know.
Sean, get your weak-kneed Ivy League shit out of here.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if there's anybody worse to go against you, because you sit there and go, hey, I know you guys don't think what I do is a good thing. However, you do ask me for gift certificates 3 times a year, you know, which I oblige. But I just look at it and go, isn't it terrible when that person goes, what are you guys doing? When did we start stealing from poor people and giving to people who have? You know, we're supposed to be giving to the have-nots, not taking what little crumbs they still have left. So it is. Have
the meek all been addressed that they've inherited shit? So now
evidently the meek became well off. And look, this is from a guy who sent my kids to private school, so I don't want to act like I'm above all this or anything. But I've never asked anybody to pay for my kids' tuition when I wanted to send them to a private facility. Your dad did not ask anybody to pay your tuition at school, and believe me, it was pricey. I'm just puzzled by the whole thing. So both of the teachers that wrote me, I go, look, I can't even identify with who these folks are anymore. I mean, and I said the same thing about the Republican Party when I left it. I'm like, I don't know who these folks are. I don't know who took this over, and nor do I care, because I'm not going to win that battle of wills. It seems like most of the middle of the road folks left the church 20, 30, 40 years ago with the child molestation scandals. Do you see that being a pattern? When did the churches empty there? Because when I went to church in England, it was empty. And they were like, yeah, only Americans come. And everywhere else in Europe, yeah, only the Americans show up.
See, that was the weird thing, right? Like by then, I think they had already, like quite a few had already moved out of the Catholic Church into the Church of England.
Right.
Which was more of a laid-back hippie-ish church at that point, where, and I think they'd already started losing ground, but that just made it all the more better for the Church of England to gain momentum.
Right, yeah.
It was a much more liberal kind of setting and more laid-back, and none of those fire and brimstone type preaching things. Yeah. So this must have been like in the 2000s.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I mean, I was over there a whole bunch then because I was back and forth traveling a whole bunch then. And I just looked at it, and even in France and in Italy, I found it probably more concerning because there would be like 10 Italians in there, and that was it. And there were, old ladies with the shawls. And I don't know how much ground they've lost that they started going after public money. But if you run private institutions for hundreds of years, and then you need to be subsidized, you got to look at your business model.
Yeah, isn't that what like sometimes the public in England is always up in arms about, the royal family getting taxes sent to them for upkeep when they're like the biggest landowners probably in the world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you really put it all together, that is probably not wrong. But their take on that is, hey, it isn't like I can go take care of it, and you guys want us to look like this. The only thing, would you agree that the only thing they are left that they're good for at this point is tourism?
Yeah, that's all it is. A tourist attraction for Anglophiles who want to go there and gape at them. That's about it.
Yeah, right. Because Kyle, my son Kyle, brought up a deal, and he was like, so could we go to any of those events? And I go, yeah, but we'd be the peasants from America. They don't want us there. And Kyle, you've never met classist, racist shit until you dealt with those folks. I go, they invented it. Believe me, they're good at it. And
it's like that shit that I told my friend yesterday when I met, and she was like, do we hug? I was like, no, a handshake would suffice. And I continued walking, which is probably how I probably picked it up from some asshole who did that to me.
Right. Oh, yeah. Right. It just made it. Well, so I, as a 60-year-old white guy, I always look and try to see if the other person's moving to see what the appropriate thing is to do. Because I just don't know anymore. I mean, I don't know.
Sean, people I'm uncomfortable with these days, I just tell them a handshake will suffice. Let's carry on.
I am not that emotional. So it's an interesting time here right now. So here's what I see happening. So I do this podcast with a guy named Kit Fairchild. Anybody that wants to watch the live version is on Facebook.
It's on Facebook.
Called the Will Rogers Experiment, and it's on Spotify and the other major platforms. But we get most of our push on Facebook. So like our show yesterday already had 1,000 views, which doesn't sound like a lot in the big world.
Yeah.
We're just two guys in one small city here in Oklahoma, and there's no democratic message here. That's all there is. And the fact that still only 1,000 people see it sucks, but I'm good. What was my whole point here? So I told him, I said, I think it'll be 2 weeks before Kamala Harris catches Trump. And shit, dude, I honestly am watching this. And did I talk to you about the 9 women up at the bar here?
Yep, we did talk about it in the last episode.
Right. So you just want to look at these things and go, if that's happening here where it's looked down upon, imagine how it is in other parts of the country. And since we only have a 90-day race now, you get to be excited, and then it's over instead of waiting for the next deal to drop. It's I wish we'd change our elections to this style.
Yeah, it should be like a much shorter period rather than the person coming into office already starts raising money for
raising money. So if you think about it from this standpoint, the TV stations love the year-long thing. That's who loves it. It isn't in mailers and shit like that, but at that level, it's mostly TV, which you're paying incredible money for. But so we've got our governor times out in 2 years here, and seeing as we've had the white Christian nationalists attempted a takeover here, if Kamala Harris and this Waltz guy are able to get in, maybe that would quell that, but maybe it goes way over the deep end.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other countries around you that have had a similar type takeover, but I've heard there might be. And it's worrying for me because we are just our election board here. We had a couple of election deniers that ended up on it. Now they got them booted off, but they made it in.
I don't know. Do these people, like some of them just vote out of spite to like mess up the system?
Yes. The simple answer, yes. Well, there's always contrarians. So let's say 20% are just contrarians. Whatever is happening, they don't like. You can't change that personality.
Yeah.
And this race started out, let me sneeze real quick.
Bless you.
This race started out with two people nobody wanted. And, you know, and we're watching the fall of our democracy. I mean, in front of your own eyes, and we're in the middle of it going, how is this happening? And then all of the people that would profit off of it are seeing that it's going their way. So they were just becoming worse and worse and more emboldened. And holy crud, now they don't know what to do with themselves. And there's a panic. Like you can feel it. Like it is palpable.
Can I tell you, like my weird concern about this is that it's going so well that I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall off, because I'm like, oh my God, you cannot sustain this level of momentum for such a prolonged period of time. Because right now, it's like the usual thing the press does, right? Build somebody up so that they get to a point where it's easy to tear them down.
Yep. Well, you know, and we need other people to start recognizing that rather than you and I having to tell them every time and go, look, I was on the news here 3 times in a row last week, 3 days in a row.
Oh God, the other day I'd called into my office in Oklahoma, and in the background on the TV, it was you. I was like, what the hell is going on?
I'm so sorry. Well, so the Democratic Party has no voice. So whenever they need something now, I'm the go-to guy. And why would you call me? Because I always have a comment to make.
I know. You'll give us the soundbite we need as news producers, right? Just put them on.
And you know I know what it needs to do, too. But I was on 3 days in a row, and I was like, I need to be careful. That's too much. You know, because I'm no longer even an elected official. They have to write at the bottom, former vice mayor of the village.
/ private citizen.
So yeah, life is going better over yonder land here. And much like you, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. Now that the two of them are in and everybody's a little more comfortable, what I feel like you have now is this angry group over here and this wildly over-based hopeful group over here. Because we've got real problems here that need to be dealt with. And I do like the way this old white guy he just throws that stuff out casually. So it's not a headline. Well, you know, if we don't deal with climate change, we're going to have this. And you go, thank you. Can you just say that like 50 more times for the idiots in the back? Because it's fucking hot down. Excuse my language. It is darn hot down here. Jesus.
I actually
sorry about that. I almost got us thrown off YouTube. Yes.
No, the Daily Show had like this nice thing that they'd done about the VP candidate
Waltz.
Where...
So think of a dance, the Harris Waltz. Now you'll remember it from there on out.
Oh shit! Do you know that was one of the jokes where they rhymed it with waltz, and they said it doesn't have the T, so he's like the low T version of the Democrat.
Okay, that was funny. That's a good joke. That is a dang good joke, whoever wrote that.
I know.
Hey, tell me about that, and then I want to talk to you about the comedian you used to do coffee for that I sent you the clip of.
Oh, yeah. So we were... it was a nice show that they did about how he is like so... like the right balance so that he doesn't scare away white voters. And it was the new black correspondent who was talking about it and how it appeals to the right type of white person.
Right. So did you watch his speech? Because it's actually pretty important.
I did see quite a bit of it.
Okay. So he addresses it. He goes, hey, I see you guys down there. I see the old white guys right down there. And what that does, much like if you're nervous on television, you go, I am nervous. And then it goes away. He's addressing the elephant in the room, which they weren't welcome. I mean, and I'm telling you this as a Democrat, I'm not welcome. And you go, but don't you guys always have to call us to get the other person in? because we're still willing to help. I don't need to run the show, but I don't need you to treat me like I'm an asshole when I didn't do anything. Right. So, hey, it is. See, I thought the guy in Arizona was probably the better pick. I won't lie. But after I watched this guy speak, I was like, okay, I can see why they grabbed him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure John Oliver is going to do a bit where he puts up a random white guy's picture and introduces him as he'll be like, you guys didn't know, I didn't know till I Googled it this morning. So leave me alone.
Right. Well, but that is how Obama got in. You had Biden there.
Yeah.
What's really odd is everyone was afraid there might be an attempt on Obama. And the fact that there wasn't tells you how scared they were of Biden back then.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you remember some of his comments. He was like, well, I just go out in front with my shotgun. I'd lay off a couple of shots. And you're like, you can't say that. Like, you can't say that. It's like, oh, well, maybe one of my other guns, you know. But think about it. Never an attempt on Obama, because that's what they were going to get.
Yeah.
Right. I would say the same thing for this guy. I did see a really funny meme, and it was him with a hunting dog and a gun, and they're like, look at this guy. He just robbed some Republican somewhere and stole all of his stuff and took a picture in it.
That's a good one.
I know. So let's try to have a little bit of hope on this deal. Of course, we're all going to be crushed eventually, but let's enjoy the moment of hope.
Yep.
I wish you were here. This would be so much more fun in person.
It's like that the Jim Jeffries show used to have like this weird little weatherman segment where he would be like, let's check in with the weather. And the guest star who did the weather was always Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt would be like, it is getting hot and we're all going to die. And there will be no one to remember our stories.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Oh, that is brilliant. Okay, I've never eaten day-old chicken biryani turned into fried rice with eggs. It was delicious. And I won't lie, cheese helped.
Oh, God. This is like the most bastardized version of biryani I've ever heard of.
I know, but it was delicious.
I believe you. I did see the picture and I was like, I would try that, even if I'm not completely on board with the way it was prepared.
Right. Okay, so I don't know if I've told you. So I did my blood work. You know, I've got old man issues since my wife and COVID and everything. I've not done any of the normal tests and everything you're supposed to do. So so I get my blood work done and I come back as pre-diabetic. So my daughter, who's a nutritionist, most of you don't know that, sits down with me and goes over what I eat every day. And she goes, 50% of your diet consists of bread products. You can't do this anymore.
You're Irish, Sean. What else do you know besides starch?
Right. Potatoes and bread. That's my thing. So I've had to adapt. And so for anybody that's familiar with something called a zoodle, which is a zucchini, you run through this little machine and it makes it into noodles. And I won't lie, they don't suck. Like, they are so much better than gluten-free noodles. I was like, why doesn't anybody do this instead of that crap? It doesn't even resemble a noodle. And so I had three of my 9 old ladies were in last night and they had zoodles with me and they were like, I wouldn't even have known these weren't zoodles. I mean, noodles. And I said, well, they are green and yellow, those for squash and zucchini. And they go, we know, smart guy. So, but so I'm on that these days, but I've lost some weight, brother. We've got to figure out a way to get some weight on with my non-starch. So every plate I got to go, is starch more than 20% of my plate. So really I do 10%. And
you actually have a proper Indian diet where rice, like a South Indian diet where rice is a massive part of our plate. And there'll be like small things on the side.
Okay, so here's the thing you do. So this doctor that was in here, I was complaining about my inability to eat biryani. And he goes, no, what you do is you buy it, put it in your refrigerator overnight. For some reason or another, that converts the starch to a slower dissolving starch. And I don't really know the math behind it or the science behind it, but he goes, yeah, it won't shoot your sugar up. And I don't know if that's actually true, but he was a PhD.
Yeah.
Or he plays one on TV, one or the other.
Yeah, Sean, those are the people we take advice from.
It really is what's sad. But he went through it and he goes, here's a couple of things that you could do different. And he goes, but I can't bring potatoes back for you. But, rice we can solve. And I go, day old rice is better than no rice. I'll take it. Right.
That's why I think the Asians, like Chinese people and Southeast Asians, are more healthy because their fried rice is usually made with old rice, right? It's day old rice that they cook up and
the other thing that I would put on there, I work with Middle Easterners. I've worked with people all over the world. Africans and Asians are the only ones that wash their rice thoroughly. Nobody else washes it. They don't. They just pour in broth and whatever they're doing and cook it.
Oh, I hate seeing that. If I see dry grains of rice, I know it's not washed.
Right, yeah. But I'd never, in all those years of working with all those folks, any Indians I worked for never ate at work. They always ate at home. So that you never got to see how they do it until your sister taught me.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And she made rice, and I was like, that's the easiest rice I've ever seen in my entire life. Why doesn't anybody know how to do this? She goes, well, it's not my problem. Something along that line.
I'm pretty sure.
But I was in my 50s before I learned how to do that.
Oh, wow. I think we just learned it because I watched people my entire life do it right.
Right. And so it doesn't ever enter your mind to go, hey, Whitey, do you know how to actually do this? Because you have gluey rice, like it's glue because you didn't wash the starch off. Right. Crazy.
Wash your rice till the water runs clear. That's all the instruction is.
3 times. You forgot that part. You can't just say that because then they do it once and they go, oh, okay. And you go, no, it's supposed to be 3 times. He left that out so he still has better shit than you do. So,
oh, yeah. I still wanted you to have clumpy rice.
All right, buddy. I got to get out of here, my friend. Have a good day.